All right, we're gonna talk some more about GraphQL, but I want to talk about something specific that a lot of these these creators who make stuff for iOS mobile development, what they don't talk about, and that is they don't talk about the specifics of syntax in GraphQL. So I'm going to talk about some of the operators that are used when you're using a filter and you're using variables. So this is going to build on what we talked about in the last video, because people can get all into setting up servers and all this other stuff, but it's useless if you don't understand the syntax. Okay, you still got to understand fragments, queries, and all the other things, aliases and stuff that go along with it. So let's get into it. Okay, so now we're back to our query, and this query is going to be called get continents, and we have a filter on it. Now, again, how is this working? Continents our continents filter input. So let's go on back for a second. Back to query, right? Continents. Usually we could just run, let me go ahead and I'm gonna get rid of this for a second. Command X, and you should be able to say this. Continents, right? Name. Now we get all of our continents. We don't got to worry about this variable. We'll come back to this variable later. See, these are all our continents, right? Name code. All the continents, got the name and the code. Now, let's create a query where we can run a query and we'll pass it based on code, AF, what our continent is going to be. So I want to pull up all the information on our continent and the countries, right? Here you can, if you go through all of them, you can get the countries, right? I can say countries, right? And then name. So for every continent here, that's country, that's Africa. What is this? Sorry, Africa, Antarctica, Bouvet Island, blah, blah, blah. Asia, United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bhutan, Iran, Japan, whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure if all of these are necessarily correct, but this is what's in the database, okay? Europe and etc., okay? So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to run a filter on continents. And I'm just going to get the continent and continent information that I want. So this is what it looks like. Boom. Right here. Okay. And we kind of talked about this, running a query with a filter, right? And where the code is equal to AF. But let's look at some of the other operators. There are other operators outside of AF. So right here, where the is equal to AF, and AF with all the countries being Angola, AO, BF. Of course, like if I get rid of this, and you just have the code and the name. But there are other operators that we can use to find countries, okay? Now, how do we get access to this? Well, we'll go back to our documentation, continents, continent filter input. Click there, code, string query operator input. And these are our operators, right? And they're very simple. So, of course, you've seen equal, you get AF, right? I can say AS, what is that going to give me? It's going to give me Asia, right? If I say EU, what is that going to give me? It's going to give me Europe. Okay, US gives me United States, and so on. Okay, that's equal. That is when the code is equal to this. In is where it searches an array inside the array of our countries in the version of strings, of course, our country names. And if this is in there, it will return it, right? This is in this array. Of course, EU, if I can do this, I can say IN, right? And this should return an error, actually. No, it doesn't. Because it should say this, according to the documentation, right? It should look for an array of string, right? That's the way, and it works both ways. But look at this documentation, it just like it'd be an array of string, right? And of course, and since this, so in, by the way, in GraphQL, this syntax means that there has to be a string here. It can't be null, okay? Otherwise, it'll throw an error. Now, not equal means that I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to say any, right? And of course, I have to compare it to a string, looking at the documentation. So everything that isn't EU, okay? Everything that isn't EU should be returned from the continents. That is Africa, Antarctica, Asia, North America, Oceania, and South America. They're all there, but not EU, right? Not Europe. Okay. Now, not in the array of strings. Again, if I say in IN, this should throw an error, but it's not. But actually, when you look at the documentation, this should be an array, right? And another thing too, by the way, you can also have multiples in here, not in, right? So I can say not in EU and AF, right? So everything that isn't there, so AF and EU, everything that's not EU or AF is gone, okay? And if I say in, everything that is AF and EU is there, okay? Regular expression works like a regular expression. If you're familiar with regular expressions, you're gonna say regex, and let's just make this a string. Now I'm gonna say this, I think it's tilde, A. And everything that starts with A should return. Africa, Antarctica, and Asia. So yeah, that's all there is to these operators, at least with regard to the continents, as far as I know. But you can search other filters and try to find operators that are different, but as far as I know, these are it. So I'll say continents, we can do countries, country filter inputs, right? Code, continent, blah, 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 blah. And we can search string, query, operator input. And again, same thing. EQ, IN, NE, NIN, regex. Okay? Query. All right. And yeah, so work on that, play around with that, and we're on to the next.